Put on your thinking caps because we're going on a science adventure. I'm going to be connecting cognitive affective maps and needs energy landscape. I'm going to start with the energy needs landscape because that's the more difficult concept. This is from a paper called Neural Landscape Diffusion Resolves Conflicts Between Needs Across Time. Have you ever played with one of those handheld ball maze games where you have to like change the orientation of the object to get the ball into the hole through the maze? That's kind of what's happening with the way that your body prioritizes your internal needs over time, except it's a ball with hills and valleys, and the hills and valleys are changing sizes. So on this little 3D landscape, the darker areas are where it is deeper. So there's like a little well for the need for food, and there's a little well for the need for water, and there's also a well for other needs. The deeper that well or valley is, the more intense that need is. So where this little ball is on the map is the need that you're going to try to fulfill. So if it's in the valley of water, you're going to keep trying to fulfill your thirst. But it moves around randomly to explore the whole needs landscape, but it's going to have a preference for where those valleys are deepest. But as that need gets fulfilled, the valley becomes less deep, and then it can roll around into another need. This is another diagram of the same thing, except in 2D. This top part is just like the ball moves around randomly. The math for this is pretty cool, but don't worry, I'm not going to show it. And then this bottom part is just showing that, it can be in state A, and then the ball moves randomly, climbs up this little hill, and then it'll end up in the little valley or well of state B. Could have also started with saying this experiment was done with mice, but here is a time range of what's happening with the energy landscape for mice for their thirst and hunger. So this middle bar, choices, is showing you like when it's in a blue period, they're trying to get their thirst fulfilled, and when it's in an orange period, they're trying to get hunger fulfilled. So you can see how long they're staying in either mode and then switching between them. And then the top is that same kind of depth diagram where it's deeper when it's more blue and it's higher when it's green. And it's just showing how these different states change over time, and that's the little ball moving between the little quadrants. Tridents, there's 3 of them. And then you can see how both thirst and hunger are decreasing pretty evenly over the whole 100 minutes. Also, I just want to show you the whole figure that this comes from so you can see just how many things are going on, and no, I'm not going to be covering the bottom half. Most people struggle to take in this amount of information at once, but scientists and also software engineers, when we look at code, we develop ways of looking at information in like a certain pattern so that we can get the context of what's happening. So it's a practiced skill. This is another figure from the paper, and it's showing this noise to gradient ratio. So that's the incline of the little wells or valleys, and then how much noise there is in the ball's movement. And towards the left, you can see that more noise compared to the gradient makes you switch states a lot, but not enough noise compared to the gradient keeps you stuck in states. And the authors were hypothesizing, which again, this is a mouse study, so we aren't really sure how close this is to like the neurology of humans, but they were hypothesizing that this is more like schizophrenia and this is more like autism when someone is stuck in a state. I'm not going to speak to the experience of schizophrenics because I am not one, but I want to say that as an autistic, like this makes a lot of sense to me. What I usually feel like is that my energy gets like stuck in a certain mode. And so I cannot stop whatever it is that I'm doing, and I can't like start the next thing. So like this is the cognitive control or executive dysfunction issue of struggling with switching tasks or task initiation. So next I'm going to show these cognitive affective maps from this 2021 paper, The Cognitive Science of COVID-19, Acceptance, Denial, and Belief Change. Cognitive affective maps compare the emotional coherence of conflicting sets of values. This is a cognitive affective map of values supporting wearing masks. So the green ovals on the left are evidence, prevent infection, science, wear masks, medicine, and social responsibility. And these are positive values, and they're all connected by solid lines because they align with each other. And on the right is COVID-19 and Trump, which are in red. And those values conflict with the green values, which is why they have dashed lines between them. This is the cognitive affective map of people who oppose wearing masks. In green is COVID is like the flu, Trump, freedom, strong economy. Some of the red ones are radical left, COVID-19, hoax, wear masks, science, hard to breathe, weakened immune system, vaccinations, government, and lockdowns. Here's a cognitive affective map of pandemic fatigue. So in green is friends, party, and bars. These are the positive values. And in red is lonely, resentment, frustrated, sad, angry, and bored. And those are all tied into a central value of COVID fatigue. I put the noise gradient ratio and the state switching figure at the top and the pandemic fatigue cognitive affective map at the bottom. And so what I feel like is happening here is our social need, these friends, party, bars thing, is one of these wells on this map. And it is very deep because we've been living through a pandemic for years, right? I've seen some other research on emotions that so-called negative emotions tend to drive like persistence behaviors, whereas like so-called positive emotions tend to have more flexibility and creativity. Like you're more likely to explore than to persist. The explore versus exploit trade-off. So I added the cognitive affective map of pro-mask wearing, the one that has like evidence and science and all these green ovals, and then the red ones are COVID and Trump. And guess what doesn't exist anymore in 2024? Well, unless he becomes president again. Trump. One of the most frustrating things being COVID conscious for the past 2 years since mask mandates ended is that I feel like I saw so many friends who were like, oh, social responsibility, I'm pro-science, I'm anti-Trump, I'm gonna mask, switch from that to party bars friends. So bringing in this perceptions and predictions cognition model that I'm working on, they've been exposed to misinformation, which has polarized us from each other. Their social needs around belonging and I guess freedom, who knows what else, have become these giant predictive parts that have just taken over their entire part ecosystem and are now externalizing, which means they're crossing other people's boundaries, like the boundaries of people who are COVID cautious and just want safe air to breathe. In order for COVID cautious people to survive, we had to have a different predictive part take over, a part that's suspicious and hypervigilant and distrusting. So it's not uncommon for one person to oscillate between these two states in different dominant parts. Like it's common in disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment, which is something that I grew up with. When these different parts that are trying to take over at different times do not play well together, then it's like you have this internal war and constant friction happening. And that can happen inside of you, and it can also happen between people or between countries. Also, one of my theories about COVID cautious people is that we have integrated. One of my theories about COVID cautious people is that many of us have integrated data and science as part of our perceptions, almost like a new sense that we have, like when we're using CO2 monitors. Some of this is covered in a great book from MIT called Self-Tracking. You can actually use external data to increase your feelings of embodiment. I'm actively working on this as my second book, which I will also release with free and paid versions like I did with my first book. So if you enjoyed this long ass video, feel free to support me in a variety of ways. You can let me know what you think. You could connect me to somebody that is working on any of these concepts. You could buy my first book. You can PayPal or Cash App me. Whatever you would like, I will accept support. Thanks for watching.